How are you? People are playing a foul play to increase the distance between you and me by inserting some classes in between us. So I told them I will not tolerate this because ours is a daily affair, daily love affair. It's not like I think there was some problem with them. So we will try to undo the damage by increasing our classes by half an hour, 15 minutes, kind of, whenever possible. So, ante ide kashtamga undi master, can't really help it. But I know, the moment you start getting into the lectures, I'm sure you wouldn't want to get out of it. మీరు అటు వెళ్ళిపోయారు, నేను మీకోసం ఇక్కడ చూస్తున్నా. We'll start with this today, human fossils, fossil evidences, few more pictures, etc. and then so those are the chapters we are actually looking for. 1.5 and 1.6 in paper 1. Maybe if I could show you the syllabus as well. That is the segment of syllabus that we are looking at. Skeletal changes. With regard to this, we will be writing a short note once we discuss a few things. I have used in your class earlier the term Australopithecines, and other fellows also. You are more or less familiar with the terminology. First you should be familiar with the terminology, later we can think of the answers. Something else that is not mentioned here is Rhodesian man. That can also be mentioned there. You should be clear about the spellings. That is the reason why it's better you make a note of them. Australopithecines, Homo erectus. Spelling error, master. Mere mari antaya. క్షమించండి, అసలు అర్థమే లేకపోతే. Where were you, ma'am? Not there? Day before? చట్టం కళ్ళ నుంచి ఎవరు తప్పించుకోలేరు. You think that I haven't noticed you, but Can I go? Good bit of writing today and looking at the pictures also. I thought I would start with this. I mean, those of you who are really not familiar with your own bones, I asked you to go through your own skeleton. The one that is given in your book. But then I'm not interested in all the bones. I am pointing at some that are commonly used in our discussions. Skull, you know where it is. Mandible, you must be knowing. Clavicle, the collar bone. Vertebra, on which you are actually standing upright. You have the femur that makes you look a little longer, and that gives you the possibility of having an erect posture. You have, these are the lower long bones of the leg, the tibia and the fibula. These are the other two words that we keep coming across, foot arches and foramen magnum. Foot arches, I know by now, you know them. Foramen magnum looks something like that. We are actually talking about this particular hole there, through which the vertebral column flows. The location of it is very important in order to give the individual that kind of an erect posture. So this is on the front side, your beautiful teeth out there, and this is the hole through which the vertebral column flows. And as it goes backward, the posture changes. Maybe I'll show a couple of postures. Just have a look at that. When compared to humans, if you look at this one, maybe the foramen magnum is here, because of which there is a slanted vertebral column. This fellow cannot actually stand erect because of that particular location when compared to somebody who is something like that. So you can see here that is the hole through which the vertebral column is flowing. So you will have to be familiar with these terms. Many times we will be coming across these two. Even now and then we will be referring to them, but these are the two words that commonly occur in our discussions when we talk about arrival of erect posture. If at all you are hearing about your own bones for the first time, congratulations. The other day somebody was mailing saying that when you are awarding marks in the exam, you try to give us a performance sheet so that we can compare with the rest of the people. I'll try doing that. Give me some time. First of all, let me catch up with your scattered sheets, some that you have mailed to me, some that you have put somewhere, etc. So I'm trying to address them. Maybe from the next test onwards, I will try to give you the score sheet, so that maybe next demand could be that I should be putting in the notice board. I will do that also. I will advertise this in the news. So foramen magnum, sir. This, as man was trying to stand on his 2 feet, this was moving forward, and because of this, he was getting that kind of a posture. In the previous classes, we had seen some of the pictures of individuals from chimpanzees to astrolo to etc., etc. As you could see there, somebody who was not in a position to stand in an upright posture. But by the time you come here, this is the man, this is the individual who was very confident on his 2 feet. Before I take you to, just have a look at this. This you have already seen earlier. I mean, that gives you a much better idea. And that's how it is from here, and then from here. And that is the kind of curve that is formed, which we call lumbar curve, which is a unique characteristic of humans, where you get an S-shaped curve in the back, so that proper load bearing happens. Somehow, every time I look at our own skeletons, I again and again fall in love with the human species. We will start with something here. Because the term fossil also occurs in our classes very repeatedly, maybe a small AV there. Can I go if you have finished this?
Hello there. I'm Franny the paleontologist, and I'd like to welcome you to my lab. Paleontologists are people that study fossils for a living. What are fossils? Fossils are the remains of ancient plants and animals. They are at least 3,000 years old and are found in the ground. Let me show you a few of my favorite fossils. These dinosaur tracks are called trace fossils. Trace fossils also come in the form of bite marks, nests, and droppings. By studying trace fossils, we can learn a lot about how an animal lived and cared for its young. This ancient sea creature is a mold fossil. Mold fossils are made when an animal or plant is destroyed, but the mud around it hardens quickly and makes a mold of its shape. Check out this chunk of amber. It's a resin fossil. If you look closer, you can see a tiny fly inside. Resin fossils are made when small creatures get caught in a tree's sticky sap. This sap gradually becomes hard amber, which preserves their bodies. Here's my favorite fossil, a body fossil of a dinosaur called Archaeopteryx. Most body fossils are teeth and bones that have changed into stone. Dinosaur body fossils are extremely rare because it takes a very special set of conditions for them to form. How are dinosaur body fossils made? Most dino body fossils form when a dinosaur dies near or in water and is buried by mud before animals could eat it and scatter its bones. The soft parts of the body rot away, but the dinosaur skeleton sometimes survives long enough to be preserved. Minerals in the surrounding mud harden the bones, making them tough as rocks. Over millions of years, the dinosaur and its ancient landscape are buried by layers of dirt and the remains of other dead plants and animals. All the while, the dinosaur fossil remains hidden and undisturbed. Many years later, wind, rain, and ice wear down the layers covering the fossil, exposing the ancient bones. Paleontologists are always searching the globe for dinosaur bones, and sometimes they spot them peeking through ground. At this point, the lucky fossil hunter will celebrate his find and set to work carefully lifting it out from the rock. He then takes it back to the lab to study and learn from his... There you have it. That's how dinosaur body fossils are made.
Occasionally the kind of complaint that I am getting is certain mails we received, second time when I am sending they're not receiving, kind of things. So I'll share my Dropbox link with you. I'll try put in as much information as possible. I think that would solve the problem rather than me on a regular basis keep on addressing this particular thing. There, even if I want to load some, master, sound again. Some rumbling noise is coming. I can also load some kind of videos so that you can back home watch. We were there somewhere. Couple of charts I will share with you, fossilization process kind of things. Though that is not obviously mentioned in your syllabus, I want you to go through those charts, the steps involved in fossil formation. These are certain other terms. Familiarity is more important. Though you don't get an exact question like where locate the humans in the animal kingdom, kind of questions are not there, but then just in order to feel more empowered, that we know where we are, kind of a thing. So among these terms, the ones that mostly occur to us is, one is primates and whole lot of these words. In today's class, I will be focusing on giving you meanings of those terms. So among those 5 or 6 kingdoms, we belong to the one called Animalia. We have something like a backbone, chordates, and then the broken bony formation, hence we are called vertebrates. We are mammals because there's a lot of child care that happens. There could be several other characteristics. When we say primates, we are the ones that are more evolved, especially in terms of the intelligence-related characteristics. We have the other things there when we start coming to anthropoids. But you be clear of these spellings. Anthropoidea, hominoidea, and then hominidae. Sometimes we use this word called hominids, which actually means the family to which we belong. When we say that we are hominids, we are talking about a family. There can be several intermittent classifications, but these are the major ones. It is to confirm to you that we belong to the kingdom of Animalia. We are not superordinary. Because we belong to that kingdom, sometimes we have those traits, animal traits, in terms of behavior, in terms of emotions. Can I go? thought I would give you just have a look at this. Those of you who are from especially the non-life sciences background would want to have one defining feature of each of them. From here we are mostly interested in there can be several other groups within the classes which we call subclasses. Some of the mammals may give rise to eggs. From there you are suckling the children, suckling the little one. But then when it comes to humans, we belong to the subclass called Theria, where live births happen. And of course, when we come to humans, when compared to rest of the other primates, rest of the other people in the same order, we see that we have very elongated child care. So when I say that we are hominids, we belong to the family of hominidae, meaning that we are the people who walk upright, at least in the bodily posture, if not in character. So being human is one of that. So at least from here onwards we will be seeing who else is there along with us, who are our brothers and sisters. So as you are moving from there to here, we are coming to a close group, from a bigger group to a smaller group. So all the way we are classifying. Terms like taxonomy come there, where we try to classify sometimes even if it is not very close to your syllabus, we try to stretch a bit so that you feel more comfortable and more aware. Today you will read one document, Apes versus Humans, that I will be sharing with you. Apes versus Humans, that's slightly a long article, so that you will be able to write an answer, comparative anatomy of the two. Now, if you have finished this, can I, sir, may I? Generally for the students in class 8, or 9, we give certain acronyms.
The science of classification, which is also called taxonomy. So why do we classify? Well, basically we classify so we can organize. We need an organized system of biological classification to provide the names, orders of living things so that we can do this in a logical manner so that no matter who's speaking to each other, they can communicate and they are talking about the same things in the same way. So the naming system we use, it comes from a scientist, actually a Swedish botanist named Carolus Linnaeus. And he developed this naming system to try to make it easier to communicate because let's say I'm in the United States and I'm talking about a tiger and I'm communicating with someone from Japan and they're talking about a tiger but they're using their own language. That would be very confusing. Are we talking about the same thing? So for biologists, they are all going to use the same naming system so that each organism has a distinct way to be identified by all scientists who communicate. So we're going to break down language barriers by using Latin phraseology. We're going to use the worldwide names in Latin. So this system is a binomial nomenclature system where every organism will have a two-part name. Bi, the prefix for two, nomial, two terms, and nomenclature means name. So it's a two-part name, and each organism will always be named by its genus, and the genus term will always be capitalized. And the second name, or part of the name, is the species, and that will always be written in lowercase. Now, the binomial nomenclature term or name, the genus and species name, will always be italicized. However, if you aren't able to italicize, you would underline the genus and species. So let's look at some examples of how this would work. So if we were talking about a lion, so here we have a lion, and that lion is called Felis leo, lion. But this cute little house cat here, that is also a cat similar to a lion, but in this case it's Felis domesticus, so house cat. This tree right here is a red maple, and this is referred to as Acer rubrum, and of course man, we call ourselves Homo sapien, wise man. Some of us are not so wise. So this classification system is called taxonomy, and it gets its name taxonomy from the fact that the levels or divisions of organization are called taxons, and basically we're going to group common organisms based on their characteristics. Certain things that they do, they have, their abilities that make them similar. And there are 7 taxons in the taxonomic system we use. And those 7 taxons are kingdom, which is the largest grouping, and then there's phylum, and under phylum we have class, and the next order, a suborder or subset, is called order. Below that we have the family, and then we have the genus, and then the species. So the species is the most identifiable, the most individual. So to remember this, we have a mnemonic, and this mnemonic device will help us hopefully to remember that order. And it's kings play chess on fine green squares. Kings, kingdom, play, P for phylum, chess, C for class, on for order, F for family, and G for genus, and S for species. Kings play chess on fine green squares. Kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. So if we look at, say, for instance, the California brown bear, we would be looking at kingdom. It's the kingdom Animalia. Because it has a spinal cord or central spinal area, it is called a chordata. That is its phylum. Because it has hair and it takes care of its young, and females have mammary glands to nurse their young, they are mammals or mammalia, which is the class. They eat meat primarily, although bears are pretty much omnivores, being able to eat all things, and this would be order. It belongs to the family Ursidae, which is bear-like, and genus Ursus and species Horribilis. So the horrible bear, Ursus horribilis. Humans, also, like the bear, are animals belonging to the kingdom Animalia. We too have a central column for us to be a chordata, a vertebrate. We are mammals, having hair and having care for our young and mammary glands to produce milk for the young and so on. We also are primates, which put us in the same order as chimpanzees and orangutans. We belong to the family Hominidae, and we belong to the genus Homo and species Sapien. So we are Homo sapiens, wise men. So let's talk about the kingdoms, and there are 6 kingdoms. Now, back when I was in high school, we only basically studied 3. We started to talk about 4 with the protists, but we pretty much had the protists, plants, and animals. Pretty soon the plant kingdom was divided into fungi, pretty much by the time I left college or before I got to the end of my 4 years in college. And then since then, because of technological developments, we have added the kingdom Monera. And the kingdom Monera has actually now been subdivided as the super kingdom Monera, and it actually has 2 sub-kingdoms under its title. So let's look at how this would break down. So in the super kingdom Monera, we have the kingdom Archaebacteria, also known as ancient bacteria. And these would be unicellular organisms, single-celled organisms, prokaryotes, which means they do not have a membrane surrounding their genetic material. So no typically organized nucleus as you would with eukaryotes. And they have no cell walls, and they are based primarily on RNA, not DNA. Superkingdom Monera Part 2, this is the subkingdom Eubacteria, and Eubacteria primarily are the bacteria that we know of today. They are unicellular, also prokaryotic, meaning their DNA is not housed in a membrane. They do have cell walls, and they typically live in colonies, large groups, or are filamentous, which means they form long strands by connecting together. So this would be the kingdom Eubacteria. The kingdom Protista, which has actually been divided into 3 subgroups. There are the animal-like Protista, which are unicellular. They are eukaryotes, which means they have an organized nucleus, and this organized nucleus houses that genetic material. We have heterotrophic, which means they have to find their food. They have to get their food from an outside source and bring it into their bodies. And they are typically motile, meaning they have the ability to move. The plant-like Protista are also unicellular. They are eukaryotic, having that organized nucleus. They are typically autotrophic, which means they can produce their own energy from a source. And there are 2 ways that this can be done. Photosynthetic autotrophs are those that take sunlight or UV light, ultraviolet light, and turn it into energy, as do plants. And then there are chemotrophic autotrophs, which take chemicals within their environment and use those chemicals to create energy. So autotrophic photosynthetic and autotrophic chemotrophic. Then we have the kingdom Protista, which are these fungi-like Protista, which it would include slime molds. They can be both uni or multicellular. Some of them are multinucleated, which means they are one cell with many nuclei. They are eukaryotic, and they are typically decomposers, feeding on dead or dying, decaying matter. They are usually the detritus portion of the food chain. The kingdom fungi, which was originally part of the plant kingdom but has since been separated out. We are eukaryotic, uni and multicellular. They have cell walls similar to plants. They are typically autotrophic, and they typically act as decomposers, breaking down dead matter. They reproduce asexually, sexually, and by a process called alternation of generations. The plant kingdom, eukaryotic, multicellular, autotrophic. They are photosynthetic, depending on pigments called chlorophylls to absorb sunlight, and they will have cell walls. And then the last kingdom is the kingdom Animalia, eukaryotic, meaning they have an organized nucleus, multicellular, more than one cell to their makeup, heterotrophs, and as heterotrophs they can be herbivores, feeding on plant, carnivores, feeding on the tissue, muscle tissue of other organisms, or omnivores, meaning they can eat both plants and other animals. They have no cell walls, and they are the most complex and highly organized of the living organisms. So this is a basic explanation of our taxonomic system and the 6 major kingdoms in our classification system.
It's actually for that I wanted you to see. Several such acronyms we keep now using. You must have used it in several cases. Is my voice audible, sir? Yeah. If at all somebody has a confusion what comes after what, I think that can help you. Can I go? So we were there. I'm more concerned right now with these words. I mean, this is the biggest one, that is the smallest one. Because day in and day out we come across them. When we say anthropoids, this is all those 4-limbed fellows who were nearer to somebody called Homo sapiens, monkeys, apes, and hominids. When we say monkeys, they can be old world monkeys and new world monkeys. We will try to see some of the significant differences in them, just to accommodate them in questions like comparison between apes and man, or many times people have a lack of clarity the difference between apes and monkeys. What is a very obvious difference between, I'm not talking about their nearness to humans in terms of cranial capacity, etc. Just having a look at them, will we be able to identify whether it's a monkey or an ape? Apes do not have a tail, whereas monkeys have. And we are going to see in the old world and new world monkeys what is the difference with regard to the tail. So you finish this one. So anthropoids are nothing but monkeys, apes, and hominids. Hominoids are hominids plus apes. Hominids are genus Homo plus Astralo. The word hominin also we have used in one of our classes to say that these are all the fellows in the genus Homo. So starting from Homo erectus onwards, all the individuals are called hominins. Any questions, sir? Monkeys, apes, and hominids. Yes, this is right. This is continuing. These are, meaning that I am removing monkeys from here. This apes is nothing but great apes. This is not even. So when I am going to the next category, I am removing monkeys here. So what is happening? Hominoids is nothing but this group, great apes plus hominids. And then I am removing this one. So hominids are nothing but genus Homo and Australo. Your syllabus talks about a term called hominid evolution. So we are mostly concerned with this. We are mostly concerned with hominid evolution, meaning that how things have changed after Australo had appeared. Nevertheless, we will try to build a base with a mention of how till Australo things must have happened. Primarily, we will be concerned with, as your syllabus also mentions, can I go back, sir? Can I go from here? As your syllabus mentions, we will be concerned with how an erect posture had occurred. But before that, I just would want you to see this. When I'm saying that anthropoids is a combination of monkeys and apes and a whole lot of hominids, they stand for them. I love those pictures out there. One of the very characteristic feature in the anthropoids anthropo in the making of the man-like individuals. This is Jane Goodall, you know her, being groomed by one of her assistants. Irrespective of which species you are within anthropoids, you long for this particular thing. The rest of the things I thought you would be interested in knowing the meaning of anthropoids. Significant things here. Those you have already seen. Rounded skull, larger brain, that's all fine. Some of the very human-like characters, especially in the face, they start occurring in a big way from the apes and monkeys. But then, of course, when Homo sapiens comes, very flat face, it starts with them. It starts with monkeys and other primates. As most of these individuals are terrestrial, this becomes less significant. For them, when they have moved on to the ground, for them vision was more important than the smell. So the big something like that, a wetty nose. Wetty nose is a symbol that olfactory skills or smelling skills are more significant. Now we don't have that because we don't need it that way. And hence, the snout was going back. And eyes were coming onto the same plane rather than some obstruction was there and against the obstruction the two eye sockets were stuck. Now because the snout was going back, eyes came onto the same plane. And now there is a possibility of seeing the same object with both the eyes. So because there is not much of a requirement, more requirement when compared to the eyesight, the nose form changes. And because these are all big-brained individuals, complete development cannot happen in the womb itself. It's not like, the moment you are coming out of mother's womb, you are standing, you are walking, and you are starting to come to UPSC kind of things. It doesn't happen. So if you see somebody like a giraffe or zebra, the moment they have delivered, they would start to stand up, and then they're on their own. Maybe that some bit of skill training is necessary. If it is a hunter, a skill training of hunting is necessary, kind of. But unlike here, everything has to be taught right from the scratch. Though we say that we are the high brainy individuals, the brain has to be activated by all these kinds of environmental things. That's where grooming becomes very essential. Can I go, sir? If you are through those pictures. These are also an indication that there's so much of commonality in terms of interpersonal relations in the humans and maybe in monkeys and apes. I'll do something. Because that word, the topic has come, let me mention a few which we call typical primate characters. We are talking about somebody there. We are talking about somebody in the primate orders. The meaning of being a primate generally is a high level of intelligence. Those are some of the very common characteristics people mention. If a human is a primate, it means that you have a binocular vision, a color vision. So what might at the most obstruct is a small nose. That's not a major obstruction for your vision. You have those hands. I go back. I'm sure you're not drawing it. So even if you draw, I don't mind. But so it is the binocular vision. You have the hands. So by the time you come to anthropoids, you see the 5 digits. It's not the claws that you have. It's not the claws that you have like, several other animals. Some of them, of course, have very technically advanced or purpose-specific claws. Like, if you look at a tiger or a lion, they have silencers there. They can move without making a sound, without making a noise. They can actually go very close to their prey and attack because their claws are so soft. When it is required, they become hard, and those the nails they come out and they do the damage. And when it is not necessary, they can hide their nails. That provision is not there with us. Masteru levali, please. Kashtapadi gontu dinchukoni maatladutu unte meeru kammaga padukunte. No? Please. What I wonder is, with my shrilling voice, how can you actually get sleep? The moment you hear my voice, you must come out of your sleep. I mean, that's how it is. So, one of the characteristic feature of most of the primates is the 5 limbs. It all depends on how opposable the thumb is, what could be the distance between the rest of the palm, and how are the nails when compared to the initial fellows. Like here they have claws, the padded ones. By the time you come here, you have those elegant nails. You try to decorate so much. I have to share this with you. Something interesting happened today morning. My son was asking me when I was giving him a bath. So I was asking him to clean his navel. So he asked an interesting question, that why is it that the girls decorate the navel? He's 3.5, I told you. I actually got a shock. Then he was asking me, don't you do that? I didn't understand what is the decoration like. Then he was telling me, no, there's something like a ring, there's something like he was trying to explain. Then I said, I don't like it. Do you like it? Then he said, मैं तो लड़का हूँ, how can I like it? Then I asked him, do you like if the girl does it? He said, yes. Somebody at 3.5, 4, he is very clear that, see, if you decorate your navel, I like it. No? So that's how children are growing. That's the kind of exposure. How much ever you try to control. I don't know what these little fellows keep talking to each other. And at the end of the day, they come and give us so much of knowledge that I'm sure we must not have had at 3 or 4. When it comes to the limbs there, flat nails is the strength that humans have. Of course, others started to have it. The elegance had come. The elegance had come by the time Homo sapiens saw possibility of big toe. In the case of people like gorillas, we have a possibility of thumb. So 5 digits is a commonality. Opposability is case specific. Opposability of thumb or toe is case specific. When it comes to humans, the thumb is opposable, not the big toe. But in the case of people like gorillas or chimpanzees, the big toe is also opposable because it helps them hold certain objects, at least on a temporary basis. So if they have to cling from one branch to the other, maybe feet also would help in the brachiation. So it's like whatever the human characteristics are, they came to be described as the beautiful things. Just imagine you are describing the beauty of your girlfriend. So beautiful your claws are. Instead of talking about nails, long nails, you are talking about the claws, and you are mentioning them that they are beautiful. And also you see, if at all you are describing somebody with the interlocking canine as beautiful, we come to describe them as witches. Can I go? So limbs have that grasp, fingers have that grasp, the ability to hold things. There are many more detailed articles I'll be sending you, don't worry. You understand it right now. We are trying to approach humans with that stature in that form. And before we approach the humans, we are trying to have a comparison with the other fellow beings. Those, of course. That is your signature characteristic, upright posture. You don't have litters, actually. So number of children that are born together simultaneously that comes down. Most of the time it is only one. If some kind of a magic happens during the zygote formation, then more than one can be born. That's the reason why it's a rarity. Suppose somebody like, quadruplets or more than that. It happens, it's something like a puzzle. Handling one itself is a big task. I wonder how somebody who must have given rise to triplets or quadruplets, how... It's not simply the forebrain, along with the forebrain, your forehead also. So maybe somebody who has a big forehead, maybe he has a big forebrain. It's not true, but then I'm saying. When I'm saying forebrain, that is the seat of articulation, that is the seat of linguistic capabilities. So localization of the brain. A little more examples and things like that. It seems to be a repetition for you, but then. You need not have to worry about the other names. It's only to advertise. So within primates there can be several groups. One is called lower order primates. These are the higher order primates. When it comes to the higher order primates, we belong to this particular group called anthropoids. We are trying to approach this question: what are the changes associated with the arrival of erect posture? Anthropoids are nothing but whole lot of monkeys, major apes, and then humans. This is the other primate group, which is very close to us, but then lemurs, etc. You may see some pictures which I show to you in your mail. Yeah, I thought I would show some. Just have a look at those two fellows. The North American variants, rest of the world. We find both of them in India. కితకితలు పెట్టి మరీ నవ్వుతున్నారు. Something that is interesting here is this one: prehensility of tail, non-prehensility. In that case, tail is a vestigial organ. Here there is a functionality. Don't really bother about their beauty, their comparison. It's only for the sake of information that I have mentioned their flat faces, longer snouts, and wider nostrils, etc. We have to be worried about our own nostrils and our own nose sizes. That is going to be our subject matter. So questions, of course, in your general studies must have occurred, like the locations of long-tailed macaque in India kind of things, which you tried to browse after coming out of the exam hall. I am actually more interested in this. So if at all somewhere you will have to make a mention of emergence of genus Homo, location within hominoids, so those are all the fellows. These are the smaller apes, these are the bigger apes, and human related. These are the smaller apes, those are the bigger apes. Pongo, or pogo, pongid or pogo, nothing but what? This is the orangutan. This is chimp. Those three are called great apes. The little fellow, small fellow, gibbon. You actually need not have to worry about these people, the left-hand side. Our worry is about them. But then just to address some kind of an inquisitive mind, who else is there along with us? Many times the human psyche is that human basic character is that more than our own selves we are worried about the other people. We want to know who else is there with us. Many times the question is who else has failed along with us, not who has passed. So remember the names. Hominoids are nothing but hominids plus the apes, and then within the hominids we have the whole lot of Homo and Australo. All the Homo put together we call them hominins. Let me quickly take you to, I hope you have finished. Some of these, even if you must have come across this earlier. The meaning of being human. We said that we have something called culture, we have language, there are several other things. We have seen that earlier also, we have come across this earlier also. So when I say genus Homo, they should be having this. In terms of society, in terms of culture, they may be differing from our immediate ancestors such as Australo. Whenever you get it out whether I am a human, you look at these and try to check whether sexual dimorphism is there with me. Sometimes we miss it by the kind of fashions that are emerging. First we'll take a small note, then we will approach Australo. Make a note. Skeletal changes associated with emergence of bipedalism, that's the heading that you're writing. Skeletal changes associated with emergence of bipedalism and evolution of human. Keep writing. Hominids, I hope you know the meaning now. When I say hominid, I am talking about Australo plus Homo. Write in the brackets there, hominids in the brackets, Australo plus Homo. As the members of the primate order have certain qualities such as prolonged infant dependency, which reaches the maximum in the humans. In addition to larger brain, there is a clear shift in the pelvic structure. That is, as one moves from the great apes to Australo to Homo sapiens, there is an expanded pelvic cavity. Indicating birth of large-brained individuals. Keep writing in side heads there. Bipedalism. Bipedalism. Bipedalism with perfect erect posture. Bipedalism with perfect erect posture is the characteristic feature of genus Homo, especially after more evolved Homo erectus. Bipedalism is occasionally found among apes and monkeys, but this is a permanent feature in the humans. In the process of change in the locomotion, from a quadrupedal walk towards bipedalism, the skeletal changes observed include write a small bullet point there. The skull changes such as decreasing prognathism, or facial snout, so forward location of the face, facial snout, decreasing prognathism or facial snout. Secondly, changing the location of foramen magnum, more downward and to the front, facilitating the vertical and S-shaped vertebral column. Thirdly, increase in the brain size along with changes in the dentition, that is, sir, if at all you see your booklet number 3, in your booklet number 3 I have given certain pictures there comparing the gorilla dentition with the australodentition and humans. This is the gorilla fellow. This we call parallel dentition. But it also comes with protruding canines, and there is a gap here. Called diastema. This is the interlocking place. The number of teeth may be small, but they are massive. The difference between molars and premolars and canines, it is very much obvious. These are the very bigger ones. When it comes to the modern man, it attains a parabolic shape. parabolic dentition with most of the teeth in the same size. You don't have this kind of protruding canine. So from that picture that I have mentioned to you, you try, I don't know whether you have got the booklets. I am sure you should be able to get to the class. In the booklet number 3, that comparison is there. You go and pick up that picture, practice at home. The parabolic dentition is emerging from the parallel U-shaped dentition. Make a note there. For example, as the evolution progressed from gorilla to Australo, gorilla to Australo to Homo sapiens. Sir, this is that picture, bottom here. This is the gorilla fellow, Australo, and then human. That is on page number 22. You can see this. As one goes from gorilla to Australo to Homo sapiens, there occurs a shift from interlocking canines to the canines of the same size as that of the other teeth, and reducing size of the teeth, and a characteristic such as the three types of teeth, that is molars, premolars, and canines coexisting as permanent teeth for a long period of life. Keep writing, sir. Bipedalism is also associated with the differential use of limbs. Apes and monkeys use their hind limbs for holding the objects. They have smaller femur, which does not support the body weight, whereas in humans the lower limbs are specialized for locomotion with the big toe not opposable and falls in the same line with the other toes. Femur is long, and exhibits a groove-like character on the rare side, a groove-like character on the rare side called linea aspera, which confirms muscular attachments, and a load-bearing bone. Such a feature can confirm the perfect erect posture. It can be seen in the species only from Homo erectus. Australopithecus, continue in that paragraph itself, Australopithecus uncomfortable bipedalism could be concluded especially from the skeletal evidence of the lower limbs. Foot arches are the other conformation for erect posture. The flat feet of Australo is a conformation for a lack of perfect bipedalism with erect posture. When compared to gorilla, Australo has less opposable big toe. So instead of saying big toe, we use a word called hallux. Less opposable hallux, HALUX. I'm so sorry. When compared to gorilla, Australo has less opposable hallux. The feet skeleton of Australo suggests an intermediary form between an arboreal tree living, ARBOREAL, an arboreal ancestor and genus Homo. An arboreal ancestor and genus Homo. That is, gorilla has, for example, gorilla has opposable hallux, and astralo resembles Homo by having all the toes in one line. Right, in the next paragraph. Regarding the origin of bipedalism, there have been differences of opinion. The general belief is that more volume of changes were first noticed in the lower limbs or in the post-cranial characters, and the cranial characters picked up at a later time. The cranial characters picked up at a later time. For example, till the appearance of Homo erectus, post-cranial changes were more abundant, but from Homo erectus, it was the cranial evolution that was majorly noticed. Right in the second point there. Erect posture association with changing complexity of brain. From their origin, about 3 million years ago, the hominids experienced change in the brain size from their origin. From their origin, to, write a word there, to, from their origin to about 3 million years ago, hominids experienced change in the brain size at a slower pace, but from 3 million years ago, to the arrival of Homo sapiens, the change in the brain size was faster, that is, from Astrolo, which had about 600 cc of cranial capacity, Homo sapiens reached around 1400 cc in a short duration compared to the attainment of 600 cc prior to 3 million years ago. The change in the size was both absolute and relative. Skills such as tool making, articulation, social behavior, such as evolution of language, can be associated with the large-brained individual. Right in the next point. The tool making capability. It is associated with sharp vision and coordination with the hand movement. Increasing a hand grip and the ability of the digits to make tools came along with reducing use of upper limbs for locomotion. In the brachiating individuals, such as gibbons, the hand skeleton indicates elongated fingers with a small, less opposable thumb. Confirms a clinging motion. If you could recall, we have shown in one of your classes the comparison of the palms of different fellows. Compare it to the other great apes. Compare it to the great apes. Compare it to the great apes. And Australo, humans have shorter fingers and a larger palm. In addition, characteristics such as emergence of nails instead of claws, and the nails attaining elegance, are the characteristics coterminous with increasing a grasp in the hands. Right in the next paragraph. During some part of emergence of anthropology, a brief period of confusion existed that questioned the sequence of skeletal changes in the arrival of erect posture. It is especially related to the Dawson's fossil. You remember that story? Dawson's fossil that is nicknamed as if I could recall for you, this was that man who tried to find human fossil record in UK. That was the name of the fossil, Euanthropus dawsoni. The nickname given is the Piltdown hoax. That was the fossil found at a site called Piltdown, nicknamed as Piltdown hoax. He suggested that it was the cranial changes and evolution that precede post-cranial changes. But currently, there are less takers to it. It is now believed that changing locomotion, need of better vision led to reducing a facial snout reducing a facial snout and modified limb structures along with the evolution of tool making capability in genus Homo. We are there. This is going to be the first fossil that we are going to study about. Those are the various names that generally occur in the exam. It can be asked as Australopithecus. This was the old name, Plesioanthropus. So today we are going to see a whole lot of names that were associated with Australo. Writing the stuff? It's okay. No pain, no gain. No roses without thorns. Australopithecus and Plesioanthropus. I mentioned one man in previous classes called Buettner Janusz. That was instrumental in bringing all those fossils of Australo to a logical conclusion. And you also bear in mind that Australo was primarily thriving in African continent, and this was existing in a large variants. Outside of Africa, there are very less number of sites. Maybe that will still have to be unearthed. We don't know. But the existing sites are very limited when it comes to Australo. If those sites were also not there, we are going to see which sites. Principally, we look at two other sites outside Africa. One is in Java, the other in China. We'll have to remember the names of the places also, that we'll see later. Had it been that these evidences were not there outside Africa when it comes to Australo, it could have been easy for us to conclude that ancestors of humans have definitely come from Africa. There is still this theory prevailing, that is out of Africa theory we call. This out of Africa theory has a major contender from African, from the Chinese variant of Australo and the Java's Australo. But as you also know, by the time we come to Homo erectus, the fossils of Homo erectus were found from almost the entire globe. Those are the principal questions. Tongue fossil. So kindly carry your book 3 so that every day you can draw pictures from there. Lucy fossil, also called Afarensis. So we'll be repeating some of the phylogenetic pictures today. South African Australo. When you say South African Australo, you will have to show what sites were involved and who emerged from those sites, which variant of Australo, and how it looked like, who was discovering. Discuss the physical features, phylogenetic status of Australo, geographical distribution. Those are the primary questions asked repeatedly. Examiner has only 4 or 5 fossils to ask from, so don't worry. You are studying only about those 4 or 5 fossils. It's as simple as what was the stature, how he was looking, how the nose was, how the eye was, what was the brain size, how the legs were looking, how the hand skeleton was, nothing more than that. Everything said and done, about 10 characteristics you will remember, physical ones. But when it comes to the other things, remember here biological facts are very limited that you are studying. You will have to remember the geographical locations, the places where from you found, and what transpired after that. Go back to what you were drawing in your previous classes. We had drawn something like a linear evolution picture. A straight line one. Sir, put Astrolo here, just below this. That kind of a image was not there in my laptop, so I was draw this fellow this side. Astrolo to Erectus to Neanderthal to modern man. I know digging your book will be very difficult. You can draw from here. This is a linear evolution picture. Before 1979, it was popular. So right now we are dropping the people earlier to Astrolo. So we can drop based on our convenience. We'll consider only them based on our necessity. This is a very simple one. Can I go? That was the two-branch model. I would be rather happy if you could recall and draw without looking at the board. But if that was not possible, no other good. This is a two-branch model given by Johanson White. You have already drawn that, but just in case you were absent for all those classes and suddenly you realized that you had enrolled for a course called Anthropology and you walked into the class today, because I see a couple of very new faces in today's class. I welcome those students to the class. I think we have finished about 28 classes so far. Australopithecus afarensis. Afar is the site of Eastern Africa, Ethiopia, one of the earliest sites of discovery. They believed that there are two branches. Afar had given rise to Africanus, Robustus, Boisei, and you have these fellows, Habilis, Erectus, Sapiens. Nothing great there, you can remember easily. Smaller Astrolo giving rise to bigger fellows, and all of them got extinct. So when compared to linear evolution model, this is slightly complicated with more number of fossils. Can I go? My pictures are not to the scale, you can make them so. But at any point of time, don't write bossy higher than Sapiens in your picture. At least that caution you should have. This one you have drawn, but I insist that you go back and redo it. We had started from Kadabba, Ardipithecus. I love if somebody could come onto the board and draw this. I can have any faces. At least half the things. Kahan tak? At least till afarensis. Either from top or from bottom. See how much of comfort I am giving. చూసి మురిసిపోవద్దు, బోర్డు మీద చూసి నువ్వు నాకు తెలుసు అని కాదు. రాయండి, డ్రా చేయండి. మళ్ళీ So this is a belief that there was one common Astrolo ancestor that has given rise to several other Astrolofellows and genus Homo. Some of them got extinct without leaving any progeny. One was Ramidus, the other one was Cainanthropus in the early times. When you come to more modern times, more recent times, you see all those robust Astrolo getting extinct. You can mention the name of the thinker who is giving this picture, Skupin. How about the first slip test? Will you do it tomorrow? Archaeology. ఎప్పటి నుంచో చెప్తున్నాం కదా, వస్తుంది అని ఇప్పుడు. Archaeology, not fossils. Archaeology slip test. Fill in the blanks. Meaning that you write whatever you feel like. You can have your own list of examples, your own list of definitions. What is Acheulean culture? You can have your own. So feel like an archaeologist. Sir, don't sit mum. Draw from the previous pages if you have already drawn this. Otherwise, if you don't remember, you can write from the board. Done? So that reminds me of something. In one of our previous batches, we had one student, names deleted. So when I happened to go to his room to what I had seen was all the walls are filled with some writing or the other. So it's like that typical Kontha movie, Surya, typical Gajini style there. All the walls are filled with something or the other. Walls tak to theek tha. What shook me off my ground was when I see the ceiling. So just above his bed you could see all the things being written. I was wondering the effort that he must have put to climb out there, and this is something that you'll have to write, which you haven't done earlier. From here, you'll learn that occasionally same species was called by different names. So in that brief AV of taxonomy that the orator mentions, why is it that we follow classifications? In order to see to it that we use the same term. It's like suppose I am actually talking about a pen, you are thinking about this. It should not be that way. So when I am talking about pen, you should also think that, okay, she's talking about pen. The problem here was that same species was given different names. Sometimes that confusion will be there. Our household name is different and our outside name is different. Some people know us only with our household name, they can't make out, kind of. Duplication of names causes a problem. This was taken up by him. This chart you will be using for questions like geographical distribution of Astrolo. you should know the places for sure. And once you take down the names of all those fossils they have found there, not all of them have to be memorized by you. But what you will be remembering is, which are the sites that must have produced one particular gracile variety, or some of the sites that have produced a combination of gracile and robust varieties. We still haven't come across the list of physical characteristics. I am right now doing with one phylogenetic status, those 3-4 maps, pictures that you have already done. And through this, I am taking you to the geographical expanse of Australo. Once you do that, we will go to the physical characteristics. So there was a question in the list of questions that you have written, Tong fossil or South African Australo. So I'll keep on showing the names once you finish writing each of them. రాయండి మాస్టర్, మీకు పెద్దగా అవసరం లేదనుకున్నప్పటికీ కూడా రాయడం మంచిది, ఎప్పుడో ఒకసారి జీవితంలో పనికి వస్తుంది. Because the worth of the value of things that we speak in the class, you will realize later, gradually, when life unfolds to you. South Africa, Tong fossil, Australopithecus africanus. You have the other site there. You could recall this name. I think you have drawn Africa map with some sites, Cromroy, Paranthropus robustus, Makapansgat. All the star-marked ones there are the gracile Australopithecus africanus. A stands for Australo. So right now, you don't get worried about the names that are given there. You are not going to memorize the names. Only in the love of Buettner Janusz, we are showing them to you. Sterkfontein, Plesianthropus transvalensis. It is also to show how much work that he must have done when people have named left, right and center. Schwarzkranz, Paranthropus crassidens, see, some time back UPSC had used this word Plesianthropus. People who were only knowing it as Australo, who did not come across these titles, could not answer. That's where I am saying, sometimes if you do not know the meaning of the question, it becomes difficult for you to answer. If the question was Plesianthropus, you were supposed to make a mention that this was the Sterkfontein fossil, which was later named as Australopithecus africanus in the analysis of Janusz. Schwarzkranz, there is one more there, one more fossil. So Schwarzkranz is known for both gracile and robust Australo. Eastern Africa. That is East Africa. Olduvai, the place you already know from your cultural evolution. Leakey, you are exposed to him. Zinzanthropus, the name later came down to Australo. So if at all a site is given, that did not happen so far in paper 1. Paper 2, they used to give sites and you are supposed to write the significance of them. If such is the case in paper 1, you should be able to recall this. If Olduvai is the region they are mentioning, what is the cultural significance, biological significance, Omo. Both of them occurring there, Robustus and Africanus. Lucy fossil, Hadar is the name of the site. In the case of Olduvai, this is the explorer, this is the archaeologist. In the case of Hadar, this is the name of the fossil. There is nothing like a Lucy, anthropologist. Laterally, you know the site, hai na? Laterally, the footprints. West Africa, West African sites of Chad, Australopithecus, that is the gracile variety they found. Now, outside Africa, you have China. In China, that is the name of the site, called a drugstore. Name of the place called a drugstore. Gracile australo was found. Then you have Java. That is the name of the site. Jetis, D is silent. Meganthropus, whatever. There is no shortcut for remembering the names of the places. You will have to remember the places. With species, you can have concessions. Before we actually write down about the geographical distribution, we'll once again see a map and then see a couple of pictures. I think more or less this picture was given to you. So if the question is South African Australo, you are supposed to write the evidences from these 4 sites. East Africa is whole lot of them. This is known for Australopithecus africanus. This is known for afarensis primarily. Both Africanus and afarensis are the smaller fellows, but on the eastern side we also see the occurrence of the bigger individuals, bossy kind of individuals. So I think those are the sites. Anything that is not mentioned, middle Awash, that is the valley region. Yeah, I'll show you a couple of pictures, then we will start to write. This is that man who had discovered the child fossil, the tongue fossil. Unless otherwise some kind of special interest is there, special knowledge is there, people may mistake it to be a human skull. Who is he? Nehru? Shirt also looks the same. Only difference is this man has no rose. Kappa. Nene tada ante. Meeru nakanna. So we will first start writing about, so you can scribble these things there. So when I say South African Australo, I am writing about tongue fossil and Africanus. If it is East Africa, I am writing about loose leaky fossil. Womo, we have seen both the fossils are there. Hadar is known for afarensis. Lately, don't know who walked, but people walked. So it's a clear example of you leave your footprints for the future generations. If the question is geographical distribution, you first draw the Africa map, show the places, then you start writing. You may start such an answer with out of Africa theory also. saying that, see, had these two sites not been there of outside Africa, we could have confidently said that ancestors of man originated from Africa alone. But unnecessarily 2 more sites were discovered, complicating the story. Life is full of complications. One major complication that you created for yourself is anthropology. Just because somebody said that additional marks will be gained here, పప్పులో కాలేసి తూచన్నారు. And counselor was telling me the other day that somebody had come to her saying that, I've been attending, I love anthropology, I love the subject and everything, but I also started loving some other subject. It's like I'm married to one, I started liking somebody else. And madam said that, okay, after that you will fall in love with some other subject, then what will you do? I remember she or he is not the only student of this kind. I have had one student long time back who studied almost all the optional subjects which UPSC had given. So during his preparation of long years of preparation, in between I had taught him anthropology at one point of time. So after some years when I had accidentally met him, I didn't intentionally say this. The first question that I asked him is, with which optional you are now? And later, some other friend of us, he told me that, see, this person got offended because you asked him like this, but it was not intentional. Later, I gained a gyan that he at that time was with some optional which I was not aware of. And finally he got into service. But I don't know with which optional. But finally he got into service. So a couple of literature subjects he studied, and then name it is there. So don't do that, sir. Have only one love for your life. Whatever it is, be there. Kind of. Kya yaad aa gaya? Suddenly it's as if I'm narrating your own story. Couple of more pictures, we'll start writing. This is that Lucy fossil. It's there in your NCERT also, Lucy fossil. Interestingly, whatever is absent in the left side is present in the right side. So it completes the story. So you have a near complete fossil. That is Lucy. You already have seen this big steps and small steps. Flat foot. A man that runs into about 9 feet. Ember had given this photograph. Imaginary photograph where the researcher is standing and then the imaginary Gigantopithecus, as he named. 9 feet tall, just imagine. You are there crossing 2 floors. ఆయన ఏదో అన్నట్టు నేను ఫస్ట్ ఫ్లోర్లో ఉంటే నువ్వు గ్రౌండ్ ఫ్లోర్లో ఉన్నావని కైండ్ ఆఫ్. That's what is the entire video actually talks about. It can be fossil prints also. See, suppose there is a bony skeleton available. As the narration goes, there is a quick deposition that happens. And with the load, whatever water that is there in the bones, it gets squeezed. And then it is replaced by minerals there. And then it becomes a stony thing. There were evidences of leaves also fossilized. Leaf cannot be fossilized for that matter, but leaf imprint was there. So dried out leaf and then one particular way of layer being formed there. Similarly, the footprints also, if that particular layer of soil gets fossilized, I mean, immediately a different kind of material gets deposited on it, where you can actually make out the difference between that layer in which the prints were there when compared to the rest of the ones. So this actually the picture that we have seen is in the ashes, volcanic ash. In the volcanic ash this was there, and quickly maybe some kind of thing must have happened because of which they got registered on that floor. Let us look at this skull. Black skull as it is called because it was found in the coal fields. The coal miners had found it. The picture is wrongly taken, but the picture shows as if there's so much of bump out there, but not so much happens. No, the projection is as such, the kind of picture they have taken. But definitely this was one of the early Astrolo fellows who had a very small brain. I'm so sorry for that. This one. We have seen something of this kind in the museum. No? In the museum Astrolo related photographs, we saw some kind of hairstyle. आजकल बनाते हैं ऐसे वाला. So remember, robust Astrolo stands for that kind of a hairstyle. So there's a long bony formation here, and these are very thick. There's a bony formation, these are very thick. There is one story actually that talks about the brow ridge, heavy brow ridge. You can observe some of your acquaintances, they might be having very thick brow ridge. I'm not talking about hair there, I'm talking about the bony formation. In humans, there is a separation here. This is one socket, this is the other socket. It's not like a single bony thing. They have it. Even in the humans, we find some people having thick brow ridge. As the story goes, the people who chew for a long time, they give a lot of exercise to the muscles and this. They tend to have a thick brow ridge with massive muscles there when compared to people who simply go on gulping, swallowing. Now, when we go into Astrolo details of dentition, we are going to see that some of any dentists here? I won't ask questions. I need your help only. My teeth are also getting decayed. One, I have seen you. Anybody else? No ladies? Only one. It generally doesn't happen in the class. There should be at least 10 hands of dentists. Sir, I won't come to you for free service. Your teeth actually are a narration of your lifestyle, as it is said. Your teeth are a narration of your lifestyle. When it comes to Astrolo, the gracile fellow and a robust fellow, just like that. I mean, who must have been non-vegetative, carnivorous in diet? Robust or gracile? Any logic there?
Because he has to choose one non-vegetarian.
There is a difference in your diet and that diet. In the kind of diet that we consume in a cooked form, chewing is much a required activity when it comes to the non-vegetative diet compared to the vegetarian diet. But when we are comparing about them, the robust Astrolo must have eaten, this is the story they say, they must have eaten, looking at the kind of formations, lines, grooves that are formed on, the kind of damage to the animal, etc., etc., whole lot of characteristics they say. Based on that, they conclude that the robust fellow must have eaten woody diet. And woody diet is the vegetative diet here when compared to the non-vegetative or raw non-vegetative diet also. The woody diet is much coarser, much harder to chew and bite. Are you following what I am saying? And see, how can we come to a conclusion that massive animals are non-vegetative and small animals are vegetative? Compare, for example, gorillas and this little fellow chimpanzee. Chimpanzee loves non-vegetarian. Small fellow, but he loves non-vegetarian. When compared to gorillas, they are frugivores. They eat a lot of fruit. So just because somebody is massive, you cannot think that they are non-vegetative fellows and slender fellows are vegetative. No. These slender fellows eat up the whole lot of chicken. Dentition is an indication of your lifestyle. What you consume. అందుకే పొద్దుట సాయంత్రం పళ్ళు తోముకోమని చెప్తారు. మనం సగం టైం తోముకోం, మర్చిపోస్తాం క్లాస్కి. హాఫ్ ద టైమ్ వీ ఫర్గెట్ టు బ్రష్ బిఫోర్ ద క్లాస్. Dentition is one very significant thing to talk about, to conclude about. And it is also something like this. Based on the size of your body, the food that is required to you can be understood. If a massive animal is there, it requires a lot of food when compared to smaller one. So the kind of calorie intake that is required, if you observe, if the big fellow depends on the non-vegetative diet, there would be a whole lot of consumption when compared to the vegetative kind. So just imagine elephant if it becomes carnivorous. How much of non-vegetative diet it must be requiring? So just think on these lines, whether the body size is indicative of the kind of diet they might be taking. We don't have any problem. Let the elephant become a non-vegetarian. We don't have a problem. Our question here is, can the body size and the type of diet have any kind of correlation? Keeping that aside, dentition is a clear indication of type of food. From here what we got a conclusion is that the gracile fellow was taking more of a non-vegetative diet when compared to the robust fellow. This was not simply robust for him. The dentition also seems to be highly worn out because he was taking the woody kind of a diet. Let us start making a note. Then we will keep drawing a few other things. We are writing about Australopithecus, otherwise called Plesioanthropus at one point of time. So as you are writing, I will enlighten you about the other. The other day one student was asking about what could be the fossil find. See, mostly you get only parts of those bones. Can you see there? The blue colored one is extrapolation, reconstruction rather. What they have found was this, this and this. Rest of it is my own imagination. So many times what might happen is they might be getting one or two teeth alone. And then you will have to generate some story from that tooth. And God forbid, then the tooth is so very big. But then in structure it resembles the human tooth. The kind of cusps that you have, 4 cusps, 5 cusps, whatever you have. And that becomes a big news. Such a huge human-like tooth, meaning that the man was so huge? Because tooth can be an indication of the size of the body also. May not be every time, but then some people have small fellows, but then big teeth. As if the entire face is teeth only. Sometimes it happens that way. No? Very thick lips, as if the entire face is lips only. Sometimes nose is so huge that it fills the entire face. Those are exceptions, of course. Right on. Australopithecus fossils. Australopithecus fossils were found primarily in Africa. And rarely out of Africa, rarely outside Africa, that is in China and Java. Australo is a small-brained bipedal with a large variety of species, in the genus of Australo. The oldest of them, the oldest of the species, can be dated back to 5.5 million years ago. Can be dated back to 5.5 million years ago. You can write in the brackets the name of that fossil that you have already written 5 million years ago. What was that fossil? Write in the brackets. Ardipithecus kadaba. A-R-D-I. Ardipithecus kadaba. It was the only human-like fossil. It was the only human-like fossil found prior to Holocene epoch. Found prior to Holocene epoch. The landscapes in which the fossils were found, are associated with forested lands and savannas. The large volume of species discovered and named differently by different archaeologists were analyzed in 1950s to place them in two broad categories, that is robustus and gracile. This task was taken up by Janusz. J-A-U-N whatever, Janusz, who believed that regarding the ancestry of humans, Astrolo was a definite human ancestor. But which species among them is a confirmed human ancestor, is a riddle that has to be solved. Continue writing there. With time, and with increasing number of fossil finds, coupled with more accurate dating methods, currently it is believed that Australopithecus anamensis was the closest Australospecies to genus Homo. Go back, see that big chart of Skupin. Australopithecus anamensis. So if you see the entire line there, that is the only Australo that continue to have progeny. Rest of the ones got extinct. Keep writing, sir. We'll start with the geographical distribution. Write down. Classification of Australo. Right aside head there. Classification of Australo based on geography. Janusz categorized Australospecies into number 1, South African Australo, secondly, East African Australo. We'll start with the first one, South African Australo. So let me remind you this one. Raymond Dart had found the evidence of tongue fossil. That was a child fossil. He found that it was a fossil of 5 or 6 year old child. But then he was interested in it. He thought that it can be a definite human ancestor. He thought that that was the missing link. Because what was interesting was the feet skeleton. This individual was walking on the 2 feet, but uncomfortable 2 feet. And the kind of skeletal skull features that he was finding, they found to be more ancient than the human characteristics, but seemed to have evolved from individuals like gorilla. So it was something like an intermittent fossil. But the only problem Dart was finding was that, the criticism that he was facing was that, During the same time, Dawson was also coming up with his own skeleton. That was Dawson's man, the Piltdown man. Dawson was this, I have discussed earlier, but I am trying to give a recap to you. There are two issues that was put forth by Dawson. He opposed confirming based on this child fossil, because 5 or 6 years of age is a time when complete bone formation doesn't happen. So he was talking about different phases of ossification, and says that until and unless you find adult fossils, it becomes difficult for confirming and placing it in the human evolutionary line. That was number one. Second challenge posed by Dawson was, Dawson always wanted to prove that it was the cranial features that emerge first and then come the postcranial features. All those evidences till then, and particularly that of Raymond Dart, that was tongue fossil, it showed advanced postcranial features compared to the cranium. Those are the two challenges because of which Raymond Dart could not get a successful placing in the evolutionary chain. And only after this story also is known to you, after 50 years of time, till when we found absolute dating techniques, till that time both these fossils were competing with each other. And then after that, after those absolute dating methods, tongue fossil could be placed in the evolutionary line. By that time, he could get a support from the other fossils also. Several other discoveries have come, but nothing to resemble, nothing similar to Dawson's man had appeared. But several other variants, several other species resembling tongue fossil were unearthed so safely. So it's like, one proof is not sufficient, several proofs are there, then there is a credibility to that. Keep writing, sir. South African astrology. We'll start with the first one there, tongue fossil. Tongue fossil. You'll have to leave some space there so that you draw your skull, the tongue skull, if at all. That's the reason why I was asking you to carry the books. From the book you should be copying the skull there. Write down. Tongue fossil was discovered. Tongue fossil was discovered by Raymond Dart. By Raymond Dart in 1924. Who named it as Australopithecus africanus. Australopithecus africanus. That is, right in the brackets, the southern ape of Africa. The southern ape of Africa. Pithecus is ape, Australo is south, Africa is Africa. Right. The fossil was a skull. The fossil was a skull belonging to 5 to 6 year old child. It possessed the hominid characteristics in the skull, such as, write in bullet points, the teeth including canines, were smaller than those of apes. Secondly, canines were not bigger than the rest of the tooth. Canines were not bigger than the rest of the teeth and were not interlocking. were not interlocking. This was right in the second point itself. This was a strong evidence. This was a strong evidence to show evolution from the primitive characteristic of protruding canines to the human-like teeth. Thirdly, the dental arcade was not U-shaped, as in the apes, but was parabolic like the humans. Fourthly, the foramen magnum was located more forward and downward compared to apes, but was less progressive than the humans. Nevertheless, the forward location of foramen magnum definitely confirms bipedalism, though in an incipient stage. Right in the next paragraph. Based on these similarities, Dart considered Astrolo to be the most primitive among man's ancestors. But placing tongue fossil please. But placing tongue fossil in the human evolutionary line, wake up call tha. In the human evolutionary line was questioned due to, number one, it was a juvenile fossil and was difficult to confirm as a missing link. Secondly, the confusion created by the pilted down man questioned the sequence of evolution the sequence of evolution, that is, whether the cranial changes first, or the post-cranial changes. In the early 1960s, for the first time, the Piltdown fossil was exposed to fluorine analysis, helping Tong get its place in the evolutionary line. Right, in the next paragraph. In 1930s, Robert Broom excavated Australopithecus fossils at Sturkfontein, the place you have already written earlier, which were similar to the Tong fossil. Such fossils were later reported from Makapan's Ghat. You have in your list of sites, I guess. No? Found from Makapan's Ghat, Cromdroy, and several other East African sites. It can be currently noted that within the gracile astrolo, Africanus was more populous in southern Africa, and afferences in the eastern Africa. In 1950, Robinson introduced a classification into Australopithecus and Paranthropus. The former were gracile and probably were the tool makers or users, and for Robinson They were a definite ancestor to human. Paranthropus was the robust variant of Australo. And was extinct without leading to human line. This in a way was accepted by Skupin. Where he found a gracile Australo giving rise to Homo line on the one hand, and on the other giving rise to several other australofossils. This later line of evolution gave rise to robustus and the related Australo, which were eventually extinct. Continue writing there. Even today, the reasons for the extinction of several australofossils is a topic of argument. I'll stop there. Tomorrow we will be starting with your East African variant. Acha, what was the assignment that I had given to you in the last class?
Factors related to civilization.
Pen. Factors associated with Sir, today you are writing the first one, evolution of erect posture. Then we started to write about Australopithecus, geographical distribution. Your major sources, class notes. And people were asking me any other sources to study. You can, if at all interested, read from Ember. Have a great time.